like a large pot, hardened in the furnace, and because it's hardened in a furnace, it's susceptible, earthenware is susceptible to impurity. So, for example, if a dead rodent somehow gets into the oven will become tamei. If a person who came in contact with a dead body, corpse, Jew or non-Jew, and puts his hand inside the oven, the entire oven will become tamei, and whatever was baked in that oven also becomes tamei. What was the question about this oven? Most of the pieces of the oven, the majority of the sections of this oven was not one piece, it was made of sections. The majority of the oven was from material that is susceptible to tumah, earthenware. But unlike all the other normal earthenware ovens that are one chunk, one solid piece, this ovenware had a sand-based cement that held the earthenware pieces together. Now the sand is organic, it's not based, not processed, so it's not susceptible to tumah. So even if a dead rodent goes into the oven, if you believe that this oven is not tamei, is not susceptible to tumah, it won't become tamei. So there was a big dispute between Rabbi Eliezer. His name was Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus. There's a whole story about him in a different Gemara. Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus is the one who said that this oven should not be considered tamei because what holds the oven together is a material that's not susceptible to tumah, even though the majority of the materials of the oven are, but what holds it together, that's what counts. Since the sand is what holds it together, the sand cement holds it together, and the sand is not susceptible to tumah, so the entire oven is also not tamei. Rabbi Eliezer said, don't go after what holds the oven together. Look at the majority. The majority of the oven happens to be made from material that is. So it was a whole big dispute. And this oven got a name called the oven of the serpent. Why was it called the oven of the serpent? Because there was a whole big dispute amongst the rabbis, and they bombarded Rabbi Eliezer with questions. How can you say that the oven is tahor? It's tamei. And because they surrounded they surrounded him, they bombarded him with all kinds of questions. It's like a snake that coils around its victim, python, and chokes the victim. So they were like choking Rabbi Eliezer, trying to show that he was wrong. All the other rabbis disagreed. They said the oven has to be destroyed. The oven is tamei, and all the products, all the foods that need to be tahor, like for example truma, if it was placed in that oven, has to be burnt. And he claimed, no, you're destroying an oven needlessly. The oven is tahor. So there was a big dispute. That's the story we were learning in Gemara. What does this have to do with the whole subject? The subject we were learning is about harassing somebody, hurting somebody's feelings. What's the connection? So we'll soon see. We also heard the story that Rabbi Eliezer brought heaven proof from Shamayim that he's right. He said, let the carob tree be uprooted from its place. Some say this was not really a carob tree that he was asking to be uprooted. There was a certain great sage whose name was Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa. I didn't mention this last time. And the Gemara tells us that the entire world was sustained because of him. He was a great tzaddik, and Hashem provided food for the entire world all because of him. His name was Hanina ben Dosa. Although Hanina ben Dosa hardly ate, he almost fasted from Shabbos to Shabbos. What did he eat? Carobs. His whole diet was carobs from Shabbos to Shabbos. During the whole week, he ate almost nothing. And only at night. He fasted during the day, and at night, all he ate was a fruit called a carob. So when Rabbi Eliezer says, let the carob tree move out of its place, he didn't mean a tree. He meant this great sage who ate carobs. Let him come to the shul. Let him come and let him say that I'm right. And he came. This Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa came and he said, yes, Rabbi Eliezer is right. And then Rabbi Eliezer says, well, and then Rabbi Yeshua argued and said, don't bring any proof from there. you can't bring any proof from an individual. You have to, not good enough. So Rabbi Eliezer said, if that's the case, let's bring a proof from another great rabbi who was compared to water, to a canal of water. His name was Rabbi Eliezer ben Aruch. In Pirkei Avos, chapter 2, Mishnah Ches, the 8th Mishnah, it says there that he was like an overwhelming, powerful stream of water, a wellspring. His mind never stopped thinking, and he came up with ideas upon ideas, and it's like an explosion of waters. So Rabbi Eliezer summoned him to come, and he came, and he said, Rabbi Eliezer's right, against all the other rabbis. And again, they said, you can't bring a proof from a single rabbi. We are the majority, and so on and so forth. Anyways, Rabbi Eliezer stood his ground and refused to give in. And here's the story of what happened. Just by the way, the question we asked last time, why would Hashem allow this to happen? Because even after all this, a heavenly voice came and said, Rabbi Eliezer is right. And Rabbi Yeshua, who was the leader of the majority, said, we don't listen to heavenly voices. A heavenly voice we don't listen to. We listen to what the majority say. We, with our own minds, figured that this oven should not be considered tameh. Should be considered, should not be considered tahor. It should be considered tameh. It's tameh. And therefore, that's the end. There's no one to argue with. We don't care what the heavenly voice says. So the Gemara says that Eliyahu HaNavi was asked, what was Hashem doing at the moment when the rabbis went against the heavenly voice? And the answer was, Hashem was smiling and chuckling and laughing and saying, look, my children have used my own rules, following the majority, to go against me. And Hashem enjoyed that. And he said, yes, they're right. Because in the Torah it said you follow the majority. Even if the majority happens to be wrong, you're supposed to follow the majority. As long as they are using rules of Torah to come to their conclusion, you follow them. Now that's where we ended up. The first page, what happened after that? What exactly happened to Rabbi Eliezer? Take a look at the bottom of the first page, 59b1. A number of drastic developments. Here's where we're going to have a connection to harassing someone. A number of drastic developments follow a debate concerning the oven, and the Brisa records them. Listen to this. You have the page? First page? The bottom of the right side, before the notes. Remember, anything that had to be, like, for example, holy foods that you would eat in the Beis Hamikdash, or teruma that you would give to a Kohen, if that became, what that was used in that oven, which Rabbi Eliezer said is tahor, and all the rabbis said was, they claimed that it was tameh, he claimed that it was tahor. To prove him wrong, you know what they did? They took all those holy foods that are now allowed to become tameh, and they burned it. To demonstrate to him clearly that he was wrong in claiming that the oven is pure and that the foods that were baked in it are still okay. What happened was, Osan Hayom, on that very day, they said that on that day, the sages, all the sages, the majority of sages that argue with Rabbi Eliezer, collected all the things Rabbi Eliezer had declared tahor. Again, this oven was used. It was, according to Rabbi Eliezer, it was not susceptible to tumah because it was made from sand. And he believed that even though holy foods were used in this oven, ritual foods like truma and kachim, they're okay. The rabbi said no. What did they do? Right in front of him, they made a big fire and they burned all the food to demonstrate in a very overt way, clear way, that he's wrong. And they showed a lot of disrespect to him. That hurt his feelings. Can you imagine? He ruled that everything's fine, and they take holy foods, believing that it had become tameh, and they burned it. That's what you have to do. If any holy food becomes tameh, you have to burn it. Can't let it out. Usrafum ba'esh, and they burned it. Next page. In front of him, and he was very offended by that. But not only that, they went a step further. They put him into a harem. That means they excommunicated him for having the audacity to go against the public, go against all the other rabbis. And he refused, even after they said, I'm sorry, we don't listen to a heavenly voice. And Hashem And he knew that Hashem would seem to be happy. And yet he continued his ways in fighting against the majority of the rabbi's ruling. They voted on him. They made a vote, a consensus, and either the vast majority or all the rabbis decided, yes, he deserves to be put into a ban. You know what a ban is? Excommunicated. That means he's not allowed to sit. You're not allowed to invite him to your house. You can't sit even next to him. If he walks in, you have to walk away. Can't stand within 4 cubits. You can't count him into a minion. It's pretty bad. There's actually 2 levels. One level is that. There's another level where he has to also rip his clothing and consider himself like a mourner. The person who was banned has to consider himself like he's a mourner, and he's not even allowed to teach Torah to anyone. So the first level, it's called nidui, is where he's excommunicated only lightly, meaning that you don't do business with him, but he's allowed to teach Torah. And he does not have to tear his clothing or sit on a log, like, an oval sits on a very low chair. You know that? You ever go to a base of oval? Sits on a chair much lower, closer to the ground, within a foot of the ground. The second stage is even more harsh. It's called Cherem. Cherem, Ches Reish Mem, is a very harsh stage of excommunication. And it seems like that this is the stage they put Rabbi Eliezer in, the most severe stage. And as a result, they didn't learn from him. They didn't want to ask him any questions. He couldn't even teach them anything, although he was such a great rabbi. Who was this Rabbi Eliezer, by the way? Who was his father? What's the history behind him? So I have a book over here, actually, in English. Buy this book, very, very good book. It has stories about the historical facts about the stages of the Gemara. And when it comes to Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkenes, his father was Horkenes. His father was not a rabbi. His father was a very wealthy person and saw that his son is not succeeding. He's not going to college. He's not getting a degree. And he's wasting his time. And he's not going to be a Torah scholar because he's already 22 years old and he has learned almost nothing. And he excommunicated him. His father, disowned him. Didn't excommunicate him, but he disowned him, and son ran away, ran to a Torah scholar whose name was Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. That was his teacher. This is before the destruction of the second temple. That's when they lived. Towards the end of the second temple. About 2 generations before the actual, about 75 years before the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash. Horkenes finds out that Rabbi Eliezer learned by the great teacher Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, and he became a Torah scholar. And then he supported him. Then he became very happy. He didn't think much of his son, that he would have success. He had success. And Rabbi Eliezer, by the way, who were his students? Rabbi Akiva and Onkelos the Ger. The convert Onkelos and Rabbi Akiva were 2 of his many students that he had. His teacher was Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, but his student was Rabbi Akiva. So we're talking about someone of great stature. So this Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Horkenes, a great sage, who fought against all the rabbis, in spite of the fact that he was a great sage and he was a holy person, they put him into this terrible ban. Now,
It's too sad.
What? The reason for this is
But it's okay for a rabbi to be
Yeah.
mean.
when you fight against the majority. Let me ask another question. Why did Hashem allow a heavenly voice to come and say Rabbi Eliezer is right if Hashem himself wrote that you follow the majority? Why did Hashem send a heavenly voice to say Rabbi Eliezer is right? You know what the answer is? If anyone would come to later generations, if someone would say, I have proof, I am right against the majority, we'll say, do you have any better proof than Rabbi Eliezer had? Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkenes had God saying that he's right, and still he was overruled. In other words, when the majority has a ruling, don't dare try to go against them. And if you do, you can cause the entire Torah to no longer be respected. You cause discord, you cause machlokes. That's why they put him into a chayim, because what he did was a very dangerous precedent. It can cause later on generations of people saying, I have my version of Judaism. I know the Torah says this, but I think otherwise. And then that could put Torah into a very big, it could shatter all the rules of Torah. You have to have a set rule. You follow the majority, even if you think they're wrong, and even though you might be a greater scholar than them. So Hashem purposely made it so obvious that Rabbi Eliezer was right, and yet he was happy that they overruled him. To show for future generations, don't try to argue against the majority. That's the rule. And when you insist, he insisted. He didn't let go. He insisted, no, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right. Knowing that it goes against the majority, he was put into a very, very powerful ban, a chayrim. Cool. Let's see what happens here. Menimno olav, they voted uberchulu. Uberchulu sounds like a bracha. That's called a euphemism. It means the opposite. They cursed him. He was put under a curse, put under a chayrim. But now they were afraid. They were afraid. He was a very powerful person. And you don't play around with a tzaddik. A tzaddik, when he gets hurt, as he got very hurt, offended, by the fact they burned all the food that came in contact with the oven, they burned all the food. He was very, very, they were scared. Who knows what's going to happen? But we have to now notify him. He doesn't even know that he's under this ban. We have to notify him that he's under this ban. Who's going to do it? Got to be very careful who we send. Because we send somebody who's going to tell him openly, hey, Rabbi Eliezer, you are under a ban. If you try doing that with a tzaddik, it's very dangerous. It can backfire, cause a lot of damage. So they decided the only one who we think who knows how to talk, how to convey that message with respect is Rabbi Akiva. So here's the story. But Amru, they said, look at inside. Who will go and inform him? Who's going to have the courage to inform Rabbi Eliezer? Can you imagine this great tzaddik and tell him you are excommunicated? You got to be very careful. Rabbi Akiva said, I know how to do it. I'm diplomatic. I know which words to say that even though he will get the message, he won't be hurt. It'll be in an honorable way of saying it to him. How do you say you're excommunicated in an honorable way? Let's find out. I will go. For I am concerned that perhaps an unfit person will go and inform him. Let me go. Because if that other person goes, Rabbi Eliezer can get very angry. And when a tzaddik gets angry, it can cause a lot of damage, not just to that person, but to who knows how many other people. He could bring about destruction, Rabbi Eliezer, with his anger on the entire world. And therefore, let me go, says Rabbi Akiva. Ma also Rabbi Akiva. What did Rabbi Akiva do? What did Rabbi Akiva do to inform Rabbi Eliezer? Lava Shechorim, he put on black clothing. I know today all rabbis wear black, right? But this was not the custom then. He wore special clothing that a mourner wears, as if he's the mourner. He wore dark clothing. Lava Shechorim. He dressed in black clothing and cloaked himself in black hat, everything, which was not the custom in those days. The Yoshav Lefanav was the custom only of a mourner to wear black clothing. Rabbi Akiva dressed like a mourner, like someone who was brokenhearted completely. The Yoshav, and he walked in, he knocked on the door, got into his house, and did not sit next to him, and sat 4 cubits away from him. The Yoshav Lefanav Barichuk Arba Amos sat before Eliezer at a distance of 4 amos. Rabbi Eliezer sees this and he says, what's going on over here? Why are you dressed like this? And why are you sitting next to me? Amalei Rabbi Eliezer. Again, Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus is the teacher of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva is his student, star student, along with Onkelos. Know this. Onkelos Hager, the one who translates the Chumash, and Rabbi Akiva and a few other great rabbis, were students of Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus. Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Hyrcanus. And Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus asked Rabbi Akiva, why are you acting weird? What's wrong? What's going on over here? Amalei Rabbi Eliezer, Akiva, he called him by his son, by his first name, Akiva, my student. Why is today different from all other days? Why are you wearing what you're wearing, and why are you sitting next to me? Why are you sitting so far away from me? Amalei Rabbi Akiva said to him, Rebbe, my dear teacher, said Rebbe, called him his Rebbe, Kimadumali, it seems to me that your colleagues are removed from you. Instead of saying he's removed from them, he used the words euphemism. We are removed from you, as if we are under the ban. Shecharedim, your colleagues and your students are removed from you. When he heard that, he didn't get angry. What did he do? He got very sad, and he rent his clothing like an oven. He tore his clothing and sat on the floor. Afhu, when he heard this, Kara Begodob, he tore his garments and removed his shoes, V'nishmat v'yoshla gabikarka, and slid off his chair and sat on the ground. Zolgo ein of demois, and he started crying. Tears poured from his eyes. As that happened, even though he didn't get angry, but the fact that he was sad, the eyes of a tzaddik don't start up with those eyes. Eyes of a tzaddik says the power of his eyes have the power of his soul. It does say that the eyes and the heart are connected. You know, when it says in Shema, we read the words, do not look after your eyes and after your heart. Eyes and heart are also medically speaking. My father had a question. He had a big medical issue, a detached retina. Part of his eye was not functioning properly, and it affected his heart. So the eye and the heart are connected. In the heart of a tzaddik dwells the Shekhinah. The eye is the extension of the heart. When a tzaddik looks and sees, and he's in pain, it can cause a lot of pain in the world. And that's what the Gemara says over here. Loka ha'olam, at that time the world was hit hard. Shlish bezesim, 1/3 of the world's olives went bad. 1/3 of wheat and 1/3 of barley became ruined throughout the entire world, or at least the Jewish world. V'yesh omrim, and some say even dough already in the woman's hand became spoiled. Af batsek shebida isha tafach. Tana. We learned the next piece. Gemara cites another brisa that describes the aftermath of that day. Who was Rabbi Elazar's wife? Well, Rabbi Elazar's wife, we'll soon see a whole story about her. Her name was Ima Shalom. What was her name? She was one second. No, this is not his wife. Sorry. His sister. Rabbi Elazar had a sister whose name was Ima Shalom. She was the wife of Rabbi Gamliel. Who was Rabbi Gamliel? He was amongst those rabbis he was the head rabbi that put Rabbi Elazar into this ban. Rabbi Gamliel, his wife, was a sister of Rabbi Elazar ben Horkonos. So they were brother-in-laws. Rabbi Elazar ben Horkonos was a brother-in-law to Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel was he was like the head of the Sanhedrin. And he put this ban. It was known that he did that. Here's the story. Tana, ach gadol, a great blow occurred on that day. We'll soon see the story with his sister. For every place on which Rabbi Elazar set his eyes went up in flames. He looked at something and he was angry. It caused damage to people's possessions. But often, here's the story of Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel was the one who put the ban. He was taking a journey on a ship. Hayababas Fino. It happened that Rabbi Gamliel was the Nasi, was coming on a boat, on a ship. And in the middle of his journey, a gale, a tremendous current of water, was about to drown him. Ahmad Olav Nachshal Latavoy, a gale threatened to drown him, came about, and he was worried he'll lose his life. Omar, he said, I know why it's happening to me. Rabbi Eliezer, my brother-in-law, is responding with anger. And when the tzaddik is angry, stay away. Kimadumali she'ein ze ela b'shvil Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkin. It's all as a result of Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkin, his kipeda, his taking offense at what we did to him. And he knows that I am the one that really made sure the ban would go through. I am the head of the Sanhedrin. Amad al-Ragla, Rabbi Gamliel, stood on his feet and said, Ribono shel Olam, I didn't do this because of my own honor. Why did I put him into a ban? So that people in the future should understand not to go against the majority ruling. I did it l'shem shamayim. So please, I didn't do it for my own sake. Ribono shel Olam, Master of the universe, it is well known to you. I did not do this, i.e., order Rabbi Eliezer excommunication for my own honor. So I should be right and he should be wrong. I didn't do it in the honor of my father's household. To maintain the integrity of Torah. that the majority rule should be sustained, and no one should fight the majority from the future generations, to see how powerful Hashem's rules are. So that disputes not proliferate amongst the Jewish people. As soon as he said that, the sea subsided from its raging waters. The waters subsided, and he was salvaged. He was able to continue his journey. Okay, now comes the next story. Here comes the next story with the wife of Rabbi Gamliel, who was the sister of Elazar and Hyrcanus. Ema Shalom. The Gemara records another consequence of Rabbi Eliezer's excommunication. Ema Shalom. That's the name of the wife of Rabbi Eliezer, who happened to be Achtei Rabbi Gamliel, was the sister of Rabbi Gamliel. That's who she was. From the incident in which Rabbi Gamliel excommunicated Rabbi Eliezer onwards, here's the story. We don't do this today. But back then, it was done by great tzaddikim, when they would say, Tachnun is, when you go Hashamnu Bagadnu. They wouldn't just do that. They would actually fall in the middle of the Tachnun. This is after Shemon Esrei. They would fall on their faces. Now, not everyone can do that. Only great tzaddikim, people that are like fast a whole week, people that are on a very high level, prostrate on the ground, the entire body on the ground, and beg Hashem and ask Hashem for forgiveness, and plead and put with tears and sorrow, and beg for forgiveness. Rabbi Eliezer was one of those who did that. Now, there's a very powerful, when the tzaddik does that, stay away, because he begs Hashem to avenge those that fought against him. It's pretty dangerous. And Rabbi Gamliel's wife knew that Rabbi Eliezer is angry at Rabbi Gamliel. And as a result, she was very, very worried not to allow him to say that part of the davening, to fall on his face. Now, how do you avoid him? And she had to be with him a whole day. If he does that in the davening, so she stood by him, and after Shemon Esrei, there's a halakha that you're supposed to not make any kind of interruption between Shemon Esrei and the Tachanun. And she did that. When she gets him distracted, his falling on his face loses its power and cannot accomplish what he wanted it to accomplish. So she was worried about her husband, Rabbi Gamliel, that maybe Rabbi Eliezer will, his anger can cause damage to Rabbi Gamliel's health or cause him to die even. So she was very worried. So she tried to stop him. Now, what about when there's no Tachanun, Rosh Chodesh? On Rosh Chodesh, there's no Tachanun. So on Rosh Chodesh, she was not worried because there's no Tachanun. You don't fall. If there's no Tachanun, you don't fall on your face. So she had a day off. But she made a mistake. The day she thought was Rosh Chodesh was not really Rosh Chodesh. And he did say Tachanun, and he did fall on his face. And here's the story. Okay. We have a Shafkale Rabbi Eliezer Lemepal Alape. Rabbi Eliezer's wife. I meant Rabbi Eliezer's wife. Shafkale Rabbi Eliezer Lemepal Alape. She did not allow Rabbi Eliezer to fall on his face. I'm talking about Rabbi. I was mentioning Rabbi Gamliel the whole time. This is Rabbi Eliezer. She was the sister of Rabbi Gamliel, but the wife of Rabbi Eliezer. I'm sorry. So this Ema Shalom is the wife of Rabbi Eliezer. She does not want Rabbi Eliezer to fall on his face, because if she would do that, her husband might get very angry, might pour out his wrath against her own brother, Rabbi Gamliel, and who knows what that can cause. She did not. She did not allow Rabbi Eliezer to fall on his face, i.e., to recite the Tachanun supplication where he would fall on his face. That she tried to stop him. How did she stop him? As I told you, she tried to distract him. She talked to him. How did she know exactly when he was davening? He could daven any time during the day. So some say that the only time you're allowed to fall on your face, like they did in those days, was if you're saying Tachanun the exact same time they're davening with a minyan in a shul. Now, Rabbi Eliezer couldn't go to shul. And if you're not going to shul, you don't fall on your face. I don't know if you can see that. The men, when they say Tachanun, they put their heads on like that in the middle of Tachanun. You can only do that when you have a Sefer Torah, or if you're davening at the exact same time there's a minyan davening in your city. Well, Rabbi Eliezer probably did not have a Sefer Torah at home, but he made sure to daven the exact timing of the shul. She knew what that time was. So she knew exactly when he would be davening Shachris and knew exactly when to try to stop him from falling on his face. However, she made a mistake on a certain day, which she thought was Rosh Chodesh, and it wasn't. Ahu Yoma Reish Yarkahava. One day she thought it was Rosh Chodesh when the Tachnun supplication is not recited. But she had confused a full month with a deficient one. You know the story. When is Rosh Chodesh exactly? What day of the month is Rosh Chodesh? First day of the month? Not always. How many days does a month have in the Hebrew calendar? Either 29 or 30. Okay. Now, if the month only has 29 days, then the 30th day is considered the first day of the new month. The 30th day is not the 30th day of the past month, but rather that 30th day becomes the first day of the new month. If a month has 30 days, however, which some months do, then Rosh Chodesh would be on the 31st day. The 31st day would be day one of the next month. This is how Rashi explained it. She thought that this month is a 29-day month, and the 30th day is Rosh Chodesh. So what did she do? Day off. My husband's not going to say Tachnun today. But she was wrong. That 30th day was not Rosh Chodesh. That 30th day was the last day of the previous month. Rosh Chodesh was the first day of the next month, meaning a day later. Tomorrow was Rosh Chodesh. That day, which she thought was Rosh Chodesh, was really the end of the previous month. And boy, problem happened. Rabbi Eliezer did fall on his face. She was not watching him. And as a result, look what happened. Ika the Amri, some say the reason why she made a mistake was not because she thought it was Rosh Chodesh, but a poor person came to her home and she couldn't let him go. So the time she stayed with that poor person to help him, give him food, that was the exact moment Rabbi Eliezer fell on his face. So there are two versions of what happened, why she let him, why she wasn't watching him. Either she thought it's Rosh Chodesh, or she knew it wasn't Rosh Chodesh, but she was busy with a poor person who came to the door. Ika the Amri, there are those that say, Asa Anya v'koya bava. A poor person came and stood at the door as Rabbi Eliezer was about to recite his Tachnun supplication. Afikele rifta. She took, you had to take bread out of the refrigerator, whatever it was then, and she brought him bread. And by wasting the time of attending to the poor person's needs, she realized that it's too late. Ashkeche. She saw her husband, Rabbi Eliezer, on the ground, pleading. Don't forget, he knows that he's under a ban. What do you think he's pleading? There's a little bit of he was harassed, he was hurt, deeply hurt. When a tzaddik is deeply hurt, you got to be careful. Either way, however we explain why she didn't notice him, when she finally did notice him, she afterwards found Rabbi Eliezer falling on his face in the recitation of Tachnun. It was too late. Amrullah, she said to him, Kakatnis, get up. You're killing my brother. You're gonna cause my brother's death. Come, get up. You're killing my brother. I can know exactly what's happening when you are prostrating yourself. The next page. And what happened was, Adahachi, he was right. It was too late. An announcement went forth, the word went around, Napak Shipura. The house of Rabbi Gamliel stated that he had passed away. He got very sick and suddenly died. Amar Rabbi Eliezer said to his wife, how did you know? How did you know about Rabbi Gamliel's death? Amar she said to him, Kach mekublani mibeis abi abba. I have received such a tradition from the house of my grandfather, meaning King David, David HaMelech. Kol ha'sha'orim ninolim. All gates of heaven are locked except for the gates of wronging. When someone hurts someone, and that person, especially the person is a great tzaddik, it causes tremendous amount of damage to the world, and especially to the person that caused that hurt. And thus, this is the reason why I knew that there's going to be terrible consequences from Rabbi Eliezer's supplication saying Tachnun and falling on his face. Gemara records the Brisa that discusses, let's try to finish off the Mishnah here. The rabbis thought in the Brisa, Hama'ana es hager. This is true about every Jew. If the person hurts the feelings of a convert, it's much worse. Someone who verbally wrongs a convert transgresses 3 prohibitions. V'halochaso, someone who oppresses him, oppresses means not by hurting him verbally, Well, let's say he borrowed money from you, and you keep on nudging him. No, where's the money? Where's the money? Where's the money? You're not allowed to do that. Any Jew, but to a ger, it's even worse. You're not allowed to force the person to make a payment if he doesn't have the ability to pay. He owes you money. He would pay if he would have. You know very well that he would pay if he had. Something happened. He can't pay the debt. You're not allowed to cause him to oppress him by continuously nudging him to pay the debt. The Gemara challenges the Brisa distinction between the verbally wronging of a convert and pressing him to repay his debts. It says that if you oppress him, you only violate 2 transgressions. One who oppresses him transgresses 2. The Gemara says, why 2? Why not 3? What is the difference between someone who wrongs a convert, where it says 3 negative commandments about which you say 3 prohibitions are written? The ger lo toneh, that's number 1, and you shall not wrong a convert. That's one place in the Chumash. The convert lives with you. Lo tonu, you shall not wrong him. And then the 3rd time, lo tonu you shall not wrong him. That's called verbal harassment. To a ger, you violate 3 negative commandments. The ger bechlal amitahu. When it says don't wrong your fellow Jew, a ger is your fellow Jew as well. So you have 3 negative commandments. Lo chaso nami. Also regarding someone who oppresses a convert, 3 prohibitions are written. Below tilchatzenu, you shall not oppress him, referring to a convert. V'ger lo tilchat, again it says in the Chumash, you shall not oppress him. 2nd place in Chumash. Below tiyeh lo kenosha, you shall not beat him like a creditor. Don't act as if he owes you something, even if he does. The ger bechlalu, and a ger is certainly included in that negative commandment. Elo, the Gemara says you're right. Whether you oppress him by nudging him to pay a loan, or whether you harass him verbally, either one, you will violate 3 negative commandments. Echa zeh ve'echa zeh b'shlosha. Tanya, Rabbi Lezer the Great says, why is it the Torah warns in 36 places, and some say 46 places, to be careful with a ger, because his inclination is bad. A ger can easily lose his Yiddishkeit. He once was not Jewish, and by hurting him, he can go back to his old ways, or her old ways. Then the Gemara says, well, I'll stop with this, because there's another piece over here, but I'll leave with this, and we'll stop here and let you go for Shabbos.
Do we know if the Rebbe ever was married?
What?
Or do we know if the Rebbe ever done like this?
It's not done today.
Mal or fair?
It's not done today anymore, so we don't, it's not done. This practice stopped, especially during the after the Churban Beis Hamikdash. Stopped a long time ago, very long time ago. It's only, I think this was only done when we actually had the Beis Hamikdash. Even though you weren't in the Beis Hamikdash, then you would do it. But today we don't do it anymore. Even not only today, going back all the way back 2,000 years almost. It's not done under normal circumstances. This was before the destruction of the Second Temple. This is way back.
I think was the saddest until now.
Huh?
It was the most sad until now.
No, it's what?
The most sad, the saddest Gemara until now.
Sad, you mean?
Yes,
Yeah,
sad.
sad, yeah. But it's a few halachas we learned. What were the halachas that we learned today? You're not supposed to
Go against the minority.
number 2, on Rosh Chodesh there's no tachanun. Number 3, tachanun should be recited right after Shmon Esrei with no break in between. And you got to be very careful with the eyes of a tzaddik. The Rebbe once told somebody who was worried about the Rebbe, was angry about the Rebbe, said, I never got angry at anyone, and I'm not shy. I'm not someone who is shy to have any kind of kapeda. Kapeda means like you can't tolerate something and can hurt it. I can never hurt another Jew. My whole life I've never ever hurt anyone, and I will not ever change that. Everyone said someone. Use the word kapeda. Someone said tzaddik, we're worried about tzaddikim. I never did that before. I don't know what you call them. You can call them what you want, but I have never witnessed in my life any time where I hurt someone. So now I'll share with you a story with the Rebbetzin. Did I tell the story with the Rebbetzin Chaim Mutzke? Unbelievable story. There was a Russian couple, that made a bris for twins. They had twins. And there was a certain rich man, this was in Queens, rich man who subsidized, sponsored all the food and the pay the moel, because the couple didn't have enough money. So the guy came to them. He also came to the bris. the one who sponsored the whole bris. But he hears the father of the kid speaking Russian, doesn't understand a word of Russian, so he's about to leave. The mother of the baby, of the two babies, runs over. No, stay. I'll translate what my husband said in English. Please stay. You have to hear a story. What's the story? The story goes like this. You got to listen to the story here. He listens. Okay, you want me to stay? I'll stay. He tells the story in English now. Well, my husband just said, let me translate it in English for those who don't understand Russian. She says, when we were married, we made a strong commitment to disavow ourselves from Judaism. We have nothing to do with Judaism. We're not religious, and we are anti-religious. And that's how they were both together on this. They were both very not religious. In fact, they were anti-religious. And somehow, as years went on, the husband got very interested in the shliach who was there in Queens. He invited him to his house. At first, it started with food, with plain things. Then from there on, he asked him a question. The shliach gave him an answer. That's so interesting. Yeah, you know what? I give all these kind. I give a lecture. You get a lecture when every whatever night of the week you can come. So he came to the lecture. He loved it. His wife found out. She said, "I thought we had a deal." He said, "Okay, but it was so interesting. I don't care. I don't want you to go again." He went again and again and again, and she found out, and she said, "Listen, you're not listening to me. We made a deal. If you go one more time, don't come back home. Our marriage is over." He goes up to the shliach. "I don't know what to do. I want to come. I love your classes, but I don't know what to do. My wife is going to divorce me." Well, the shliach didn't have any answer. But the answer came from her dream. That night, an elderly woman, very prominent looking woman, comes to her in a dream and says, "Oh, I forgot the most important part of the they didn't have children for a very long time. And they were childless, 10 years childless." So this lady in the dream says to her, "I heard that you don't have any children. You're looking for having children. Yes, I also heard your husband has gone to a class and you don't let him. I'll tell you what, you don't have to answer me right now. If you allow your husband, you'll have a child by the end of the year. If you go yourself, you'll have twins. I'll tell you exactly where I'm located." He said, "You go to the cemetery, Montefiore Cemetery, my grave, you'll see my grave. If you pass this, you pass that." And she gave in the dream directions how to get to her caver. "And when you come, you let me know. Either no, or have one child or two children. What do you want? One child, no children, one child, two children." She asked the shliach, "Can you give me directions to go to the Ohel?" "I can take you there." No. Once I'm there, I know where to go. I already have instructions. I know where to go. How do you know? Just I need directions how to get there. He gave her directions. She gets to the Ohel, and exactly how this lady told her in the dream where her burial site is, the caver is. That's exactly where it was. And she says in front of the Rebbitzin's caver, the Chaim Mushka's caver, "Rebbitzin, I want two children. I will also go to the class." And these are the twins that were born a year later. After this incident, a year later, twins were born. So here's the Rebbitzin in a dream coming to someone, giving her a bracha. The Rebbe said about the Rebbitzin that she's not only great because she's the daughter of a tzaddik, she's great in her own merit. She has the power to give brachas, just like I can. You can go to her for blessings. You don't need mine. She can, in fact, her blessings are sometimes happen even quicker than my blessings. What the Rebbe said about the Rebbitzin. When the Rebbe was asked I heard she was very great. Can you explain? Can you describe her? So the Rebbe responded, "Only God knows her greatness." And the Rebbe does not exaggerate. The Rebbe said about the Rebbitzin, "Only Hashem," excluding himself too. "I don't know her." The Rebbe knows a lot and can look right through you. And the Rebbe was married already 50 years at that time. And the Rebbe said, or more than 50 years, much more, over 60 years. And the Rebbe says, "I don't know her. I can't tell you her great. I know she's beyond, but to describe exactly how great she was, only God knows." This is the story of the Rebbitzin. There's one other story, but I don't have time right now. Another story of where Yom Kippur, the Rebbe was pouring out. She never came to shul, by the way. She didn't want any honor, so she stayed home on Yom Kippur and davened in the house. There's someone there, and he notices that she's pouring out her heart and crying out when she's saying Al Khay. After she finished davening, he asks her, "What are you crying for? What do you? I know what I cry for. I know what I'm saying. What I'm confessing. What are you confessing?" You'd be surprised. He says, "Yeah, what? Well, during the Second World War, when the Nazis were throwing bombs, there was a certain Jew who could have been killed. He was standing he was oblivious of the danger, and he was standing in the middle of the way. I pushed him to save his life, and I did save his life. But I pushed a Jew, and he got angry at me. I can never forgive myself for this. Even though I saved his life, the fact that I pushed and never did is bothering me till today. This is 50 years later, 60 years later, whatever, how many years later. That's what I'm saying, okay, because I pushed a Jewish person. It saved his life." She didn't push him because he wanted. That's the Rebbe thing. Okay. Sorry for keeping you late. Okay, have a wonderful Shabbos.
Thank you. No. You women always in this class. I don't know. Okay. Yes, I'm offended. We don't hear that like the second class. Yeah, in your defense, you sit on the front row.
No, I
don't know about-
this is my first day in this class.
Oh, wait, what? You were not here before? No? It was going to you, sometimes he gets, off. Yeah, but
Yeah. I also had no idea what we were talking about when he first came in. He's like, yes, there's a dead rat in the oven. I was like, what?
Yeah, but give the back end for the.
yeah, I was lost too.
Yeah, okay, good.
No worry.
I thought I was alone.
This is the best class to ask about the rubber.
Oh, also,
I asked, did the rubber get angry?
What?
I asked him, did
I
the
think
rubber
he
ever
asked
get
me
angry?
question.
And then he started to talk. Yeah, he said that.
He said it's not happening today, but I think that he didn't ask about hearing. And he answered like that today we don't make hearing.
We don't.
There is no like probably they can say we don't say.
Yeah, okay.
Hear him about this.
I didn't know that.
Hey, Baruch Hashem, what do you want me to tell you? This is the.
No, I just the term okay, exactly. But then he said
But
like
he got inspired himself and started with the
yeah, but then
story.
he said like the Rebbe
That was
about
my
himself.
yeah. That he never got angry.
Uh-huh.
He's the best to talk about the.
I know, I heard.
He has the best stories. You know, just 2 seconds he was already crying.
I know. I had him over the summer. He's great.
Whoa. So it's worth to stay.
I know.
I always say it's not worth it to stay in the summer because the sun is disgusting.
Oh, well, he did go like 40 minutes over every night, which was a little annoying, but like, it's okay.
But
You
you go classes with him? Oh my gosh, yeah.
From 8 to 9, but he would then go till like almost 10. And then you would like get
Amazing.
ready for bed. No, I had to wake up at 6 a.m. to work.
No.
Anyways, I'll be here for Shabbos.
Amazing, finally, you're always going.
My rabbit
No,
said
she
that-
would
no,
go.
my rabbit said that my rabbit said had a stomach bug.
I have something for you.
It was stomach
Oh.
bug, but she was throwing up all yesterday. I know. I would
I should want to hear. You tried. You